great. You go to your mimeograph and you crank out a picture of a cat and you have to put it in that tube and you're like, and then your friend calls you up and you're like, hello? Oh, yeah. Yes. Did you get the cat picture?
It's the end of the year.
It is the end of the year.
Lists, and we've done our lists, and we got together and we decided to talk about the best things of the year.
This beer is terrible.
As soon as I said my list, I immediately regretted everything because I feel like every one of my top 5 games could be in another place and it'd be perfectly fine.
I think
like
that
it's such a like it's not like 2011 anymore where everyone can just say Skyrim is game of the year and nobody questions it.
And it was a pretty steep drop to number 2.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I think that it's your personal choice. Doing a top 5 games of the year. That's not like. It's not like the games were literally racing each other across a finish line in like one. They were all doing very different things. Yeah. It's more like, I would like to order things from a menu. I would like one of these and one of these. It's not like you go out to a steakhouse and you get like 5 small steaks. You have like little things there. So you have some like potatoes and like a.
Yeah, it was a strong year for sequels, I think. I have to say Dishonored I was so surprised by that. I think it was without a doubt the best new IP
that
of
was my number 1
yeah.
game of the year.
Yeah.
It was Dishonored. It wasn't perfect. And I think I've rarely ever made like my favorite game of the year the perfect game of the year that had everything working, but it was like I just took to it.
Yeah.
I was like a sponge that yet had water, and it was like, this is what I've been wanting to do, and I forgot how much I wanted to be doing.
And I was saying in my top 5 when I was talking about Dishonored, which was my number 4, that it reminds me a lot of BioShock in the sense that the world that they've created is very bold and bright and colorful, but at the same time it's very dark and creepy.
The key thing there is they created a world, which I give them so much credit for, because they were like, well, we could do a sequel to something, or we could make a new thing.
Yeah, and the world that they created isn't even as detailed as a lot of the worlds in other games this year, but I feel like what they had in it was so much more interesting.
And it's the fact that there is it's a well-articulated world, but they don't explain it. Like, you get those books and you slowly realize, oh, the whales have teeth and tentacles coming out of their mouth, and it's never explained exactly why or what the circumstances are, and it's that feeling of mystery where I want to keep investigating a little bit more to just peel back one more layer to see if I can make sense of this kind of harebrained, strange, like Kaiserish mixed with magic environment.
It's very interesting how they. The thing about Dishonored is like they had a novel new aesthetic. Like they designed a new world, they made it look good, and they did some. They did some sort of new things with the gameplay, but I think for the most part, that was an example of really competent, experienced people taking stuff that wasn't necessarily new ideas, but doing them right.
Yeah.
And it's like, they could have made, a Skyrim. They could have done some giant sprawling thing, but instead they scaled it back and they were like, okay, we're still gonna have this huge area to explore, but instead we're going to make like a playground.
Yeah, I think that is what has drawn a lot of people to Dishonored, is the fact that nothing like that they did with the gameplay was particularly unique, but the fact that it was done in a world that was so different than anything we've seen so far, like even from BioShock, really like, I think it captures people, and it kind of bridges that gap between games and art that has been such a common theme this year. Which I think Journey absolutely did the best out of anyone.
Well, that might have been art in this game. I mean, it is.
I think when you look at the whole art game argument, you've got an interesting thing, because you've got games like I don't know, like you got Braid in one corner, and then in the other corner you've got just massive AAA stuff like
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I woun't really, but I mean, it's like if Hollywood only put out like the strangest, most Eastern European art house short films and Michael Bay movies, and there was like no middle ground. There's no like fluctuation. There's no kind of no gradient, and I feel like Journey really pushed the envelope without trying too hard, without like just trying to just be like, look what I'm doing. I'm super artsy. I'm so artsy. Look at me.
It's one of the few games this year that I didn't have a single gripe with, like none whatsoever.
Yep,
I thought
agree.
the co-op. I cannot wait to see, like a year, 2 years from now down the road, other games using that same mechanic in other ways that are just as interesting.
Well, that I think is, you know, and I've mentioned before, I have nothing, I'm not against multiplayer. It's not something I particularly have an
you and I
affinity
both.
for.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the time to schedule it. I feel horribly responsible for having to do things right with my friends when I'm playing it. And here comes Journey with this casual co-op where I don't even know who I'm playing with.
It's like a glory hole.
So much. I mean, okay.
Glory hole multiplayer.
Did you ever have
in
the
a truck
instance where
stop bathroom.
you have your buddy and you're doing things together, and then the wind comes and takes them away? It's tragic. You know, it's just like, hold on, this doesn't feel right. I've never had that kind of connection to my co-op buddy, but I don't know who they are, and there's no overt sense of threat in the game that's supposed to be bonding us together, and I have that kind of a strong reaction.
I think that is why you have such a strong reaction, is because you haven't heard them speak.
Yeah.
Because the worst part of multiplayer to me is not like the teamwork or whatever, it's having to talk to the other person and coordinate your efforts.
Yeah.
And there was none of that in Journey, and where it succeeded so well is allowing people to play cooperatively without needing to talk to each other and figure things out, you know?
Well, I mean, I think it's weird because I know a lot of people kind of are just like, that's not a game. There's no challenge, and it's like, well, it's taking the medium, it's taking the video game, the medium, whatever you want to call this art form, and it's kind of just making a weird shaped thing with it, and we're kind of the sort of the comparison I feel like is Fez, and Fez is also very much like a work of art. It's somebody's being like, Phil Fish is like, I made this is me, but at the same time it's also really an homage to video games, whereas Journey is so far removed from what video games are.
It's something new. I mean, if someone did not know of video games, and you gave it to them, they A, could play it, and B, probably wouldn't say, oh, this is one of them, our video games.
Yeah, it's something I wouldn't feel embarrassed to show my parents and have them play.
That is such a good, like, I guess a litmus test for when I think a game is truly exceptional is when I say, would I show this to my mom?
Yeah.
You know? And it's, I mean, we've got like a lot of games where you kill people. There are a lot of games where you have to go through menus, and it's like, maybe the thing that's sort of stopping games from really catching on as a popular art form is that's always a thing.
Well, I was saying that in my something, that like, I have nothing wrong with games of action and violence and stuff like that, but when you do kind of take a step back and it makes up such a preponderance of what is, especially kind of the top level, the AAA games, that's like, God, it's a little more diversity. We're getting there.
Yeah.
But I think that does help Journey stand out.
Yeah.
As usually happens with my wife, who's kind of like your parents in this analogy. You know, if I'm playing games and she comes home, she asks me to turn down the war. And it's, you know, in this case, it's like, hold on, what is that? And it's immensely intriguing. What was your number one game on your list?
Well, just to completely shift gears, my number one game was Far Cry 3.
All 4 of my non-Journey games were all shooters.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good year for shooters, but
Far Cry 3, and it's like, I kind of hate that it's just been run through the ringer, and people are like, oh, it's got the, it's got some racist themes, and it's got some colonial stuff, and it's got some things in it that are bad, and I'm like, I set a bear on fire. Shut the fuck up.
How are you not understanding this?
Like, anybody who's gonna pick it apart and just, if you're gonna pick it apart, you're not a fun person. It's such a fun game. It's
the design elements too. That I think it's almost deceptive in how much fun it is.
Yeah.
Because for it to be that open world, for you to be able to play it in such a dynamic way and build your character out in the ways that it allows, that is not easy to put underneath the hood of a game and have it hold up and stay interesting.
Does being able to set things on fire, though, Game of the Year make?
That actually really goes a long way to setting things on fire.
I believe it for you.
I mean, oddly enough,
It's the Tinderbox rubric for Max Scoville.
It's okay. I like some animals, and I like it when they do like a good job making nature. And if you can burn the nature, then by all means, I'm sold. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's.
Jeez, how did you like Journey then? You
I
can't
have
burn
no
anything
idea.
in that game.
Well, Journey wasn't. Journey, I loved it, but that wasn't on my top 5. One that surprised me that was Max Payne 3.
That's a good one.
Which I thought that was kind of a weird parallel. In the same way that sort of Fez and Journey are there, I feel like Max Payne 3 was sort of like a, kind of almost like a yin to the yang of Dishonored. Like it was a bunch of guys who know what they're doing. It was a really competent game.
Yes.
And it was, whereas Dishonored took a bunch of elements and kind of wove them together, that one took like the original game's elements.
Yeah.
They were like Max Payne 1 What if we took that and like made that now, and it looks gorgeous, but it's like the simplest gameplay. You run and you shoot the guy, and then you dive and you shoot, and then there's a guy.
Remember,
and then he says
the original Max Payne came out not long after The Matrix. I think so close to The Matrix that I don't believe that they had seen The Matrix yet to know that they were doing this in their game.
Yeah.
And it was just this beautiful zeitgeist that they just fell right into.
Yeah, it was bullet time.
It was interesting playing Max Payne now, where I don't need things to slow down to my movies anymore for me to declare them cool, and to sort of see that element now more as just a true gameplay element and not this thing that I leaned on it so much in the first two Max Payne.
But it's incredible because all the visuals, all the sound design, the music, the writing, the art direction was all so like cutting edge and so modern, but they kept the game mechanic like totally just meat and potatoes.
But
like,
it shows you also what Rockstar's tech, when it doesn't have to be open world, how just the vibrancy, the colors in the Brazil level, it was like I've never seen that in a game.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And yet I always have this kind of internal conflict, bringing things back to Game of the Year, where I feel like it's almost cheap to choose a sequel as Game of the Year, even if it vastly improves. Like, I feel like the groundwork has already been laid, and they've simply improved.
I would like to cite Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third Die Hard movie, which originally was not a Die Hard movie, but it was retrofitted so that it was about John McClane, and it's, I would say, on par with the first one. And video games are so frequently kind of, subject to, like, they have to be iterative, like they have to go on name brand recognition. I don't know.
Not always.
Max Payne 3 is like so far, like it is connected there. It is technically a sequel, but it's like.
But really, only the fogies remember the first two. And if
It's
anything,
like
the kids remember Mark Wahlberg in that godforsaken movie. What was your Game of the Year?
My number one Game of the Year was Borderlands 2, and again, I feel like these all could have been switching around and it would have been just fine. When I think back on 2012, like I admire it as kind of the year of the indie for three reasons: Journey, Fez, and The Unfinished Swan. And Journey was the one of those three games that I felt like was the most complete experience, like from start to finish. It knew what it wanted to do, it set out to achieve it, and it did, and that was it. There's not a single person I would not recommend that game to.
I did not smoke nor go to the bathroom during the period of time in which I played that game, which you may not know me well enough. That's a fairly remarkable achievement. Our collective top 5 lists are the most diverse I've ever seen of people that I'm working with, and it's kind of cool. And I think it's obviously made this decision on what our collective Game of the Year is going to be all the more challenging, but it seems like there's that one thing that we do kind of agree on, the game that just really you can't find fault with. It sounds like Journey to me.
You can't set any bears on fire, but
you don't feel like you need to.
Yeah.
You're not feeling that there's something absent and it's, a four-legged ancient animal.
No, I mean, there's some people who are like, 3 hours for $15, that's $5 an hour, and it's like, just get a job.
Well, no, if you judge games
entertainment
solely as a product, then you're looking for a buffet. You're looking for an endless buffet of crappy shrimp and pork
if you're concerned about time entertainment versus the investment, you should probably look into Super Balls or a Frisbee or perhaps books, because video games are kind of expensive.
Tara, Journey?
Yeah, did we just pick our Game of the Year?
I
think it might be Journey.
All right, this was the easiest, and might I say the most casual means of picking a Game of the Year, and I look forward to many more of these.
I'm out of this nasty beer.
Champagne.
To Journey.
It's champagne?